What it do, NMA crew? Hey man, listen, today I'm going to be ranting about Tamayura because I just finished it. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I don't know how long this one's going to be. It's probably going to be a lot longer than normal though. I have a lot to say. I know there's going to be some stuff that I accidentally leave out just because there's so much. I can't remember it all. But this is probably one of my favorite Japanese animes ever, I must say. I will definitely want to preface this with a glaze overload. Do I recommend Tamayura? Yes. Obviously, I'm going to give it a pretty glowing review, but it's a very understated, sort of soft-spoken slice of life series that's very light on the drama. It's super emotional and poignant, but not in a way that feels extreme or jarring. There's a very consistent emotional through line of it that slowly fluctuates throughout each episode, and there is a strong tinge of melancholy to it, especially towards the beginning and end of the series, which I'll get into in a little bit. But at the end of the day, it is ultimately an extremely optimistic show. There's something that I talked about in my Zom 100 video about why I liked it so much despite having so many abject problems with it, and that was the sort of spirit of cautious and well thought out optimism. And that is this series in a nutshell. It is about the passage of time. This is kind of similar. I'm referencing a lot of videos right now, but similar to what I was talking about in my Azumanga Daioh video, and slice of life and Nichijoke and nostalgia, and how all of it sort of ended up reminding me that the memories that you have in your past will always be a part of who you are in the present, so they'll never truly fade away. And being able to keep in touch with that is one of the beautiful things about being a human, and one of the only ways to keep yourself sane moving forward with all of the changes that your life is going to inevitably go through. So this is a series about a girl whose father dies when she's very young. He's a photographer and a very good dude overall. He's a great father. He is a great photographer. He's great to all his friends. He motivates them to do better things. He's just all around the saint of this freaking show. And he dies tragically young for her, and her family moves away to sort of separate her from that trauma and grief. But once she becomes the age where she's about to go into high school, she decides that she really wants to move back to Takehara, which is the town that she grew up in, that her dad tragically passed away in. It's never explained how exactly he died, I don't think. There's never a scene of it. You never see the moment she found out or anything super overly dramatic like that. It's just, you understand it just based on what it is, and the sort of grieving tone of especially a lot of the earlier parts of the series as she is slowly learning about all of the lessons and values that her father left behind for her, is very palpable. So it has an interesting tone in the sense that it's overall a very optimistic slice of life series. This falls into the Iyashike genre, also known as the quote-unquote healing genre, but I would say it's almost a step beyond healing. This is definitely a story about straight-up growth. It's something that almost feels parental to watch, in a way, which is what does that mean? Well, I've heard a lot of people describe the concept of moe, and this is not the most moe blob, overly saccharine story known to man, not by a long shot, but, it is something that could be defined as a moe anime, though probably more aptly Yashike. And a lot of times people describe it, they say stuff like, oh, I want to protect them, oh, they're my daughteru, oh, I want to see them grow, which is obviously, very literally what I'm talking about here. But that stuff all sounds extremely, parental to me. When it comes to things that are stereotypically cute, the thing I immediately go to is babies. Babies are cute because they elicit, a desire to protect them. They look so, a little helpless and half-baked and a little goofy and stupid. And the feeling of cuteness is very parental in my eyes. Seeing something, it's oh, I want to protect that, I want to nurture that and have it grow. That's sort of kind of the feeling I at least got from this show, because you see the character development of Fu, who is the main character, from the point where she is obviously extremely sad. She's a bit emotionally disconnected from herself, very soft-spoken, very shy, and doesn't really know what she wants to do with her life, but knows that she wants to try to learn more about herself, her upbringing, and her father to hopefully aid in that pursuit, I guess. And you see her develop. Something I realized by the final movie is that she develops so many relationships. There is a main 4 girls that she is friends with, so she's friends with 3. She's the 4th member, as there are in many, moe anime and stuff like in this sort of vein. But then she also has her friend from home, and then a new friend that her friend from home made. She has the older sister of one of her friends, is a very prominent character that she develops a personal relationship. She develops a very personal and deep relationship with her mother, as well as her grandmother. She develops a very strong relationship with the mentor character, who is a older photographer who she deeply wants to emulate and who is her main inspiration for getting into photography outside of her father. She develops her relationship with her father posthumously. She develops relationships with people from her father's past. There's a guy who runs a camera shop. There's her father's old tsundere friend. He's kind of hilarious. One of his old underclassmen she develops a relationship with. There are just so many different characters and little interactions and people that she knows, and she cultivates all of these relationships over the course of this show. And so it's sort of like by the end, show's about 35 episodes, give or take, you just get to look back and reflect holy shit, look at how far we've come. And the main way that this happens is through life lessons sort of instilled to Fu through her father. The obvious one, the biggest one, is being quote-unquote more aggressive, which essentially just means taking the initiative and seeking out creating memories, not being overly caught up in the idea of creating a memory in a stressful way, before it's too late, but just exposing yourself to the whims of life more. Getting out of your comfort zone so that you can allow for life to sweep you off of your feet. You can allow for your relationships to bear extremely emotionally important moments to you. All these things. And it's advice that everybody's always got. You should always go out and see the world and try new things. It will end up developing you as a person. You'll make memories that you'll never forget. But it's something that you get to really see in action, especially in the 3rd season, Tamayura More Aggressive, where you start to see her run her own photography club, and she gets underclassmen, and then the next year she gets other underclassmen, and it's you get to see her sort of eventually grow to the point where she can take on a guiding role as the senpai, and it's just an experience where you could tell every step of the way she feels like she's taking a risk, but she has such a powerful support system that she feels safe to do so. She wants to learn more about herself because that's sort of the value that her father instilled in her. Her parents are extremely supportive, her friends are extremely supportive and understanding and go to her when they feel something is off. And there's just overall such a tight-knit sense of community in this series that is really wholesome and amazing to watch. It's this is how awesome human life can be if there is a strong community and support system raising, children in a little town where they learn, to value their relationships and carve out fresh experiences that they'll remember for the rest of their lives and be good to each other and all of these things. It's just so beautiful to watch. There is one scene where the parents are sort of talking when Fu starts thinking about graduation. And they're like, you know what, all we can do is watch and support from afar. We can't directly meddle with them anymore. They're becoming adults, and all we can do is watch, stress like hell, and just hope that they find themselves and grow into beautiful, grown people. And that's sort of exactly a very succinct and accurate way of how I viewed the series. I kind of have that exact feeling of just watching and just hoping that everything turns out okay. And just obviously you can't support, but you wish you could, you want to. You just want to see these characters grow into the people that they can be. Because especially with Fu, she has the drive to. She's extremely socially awkward, but she pushes through it constantly. She's always going on these mini sanctuary explorations with Cow, who is one of my favorite characters. older sister. She's constantly confronting her emotions and making big decisions, before which she tends to sort of shut down and get in her own head, which sort of shows off her personality as someone who's liable to overthink things a little bit, but not quite in the same way as some other characters in the show. Like, Fu is somebody who gets lost in her emotions a little bit, as opposed to necessarily being lost in every single little detail. She's not the most intentional person. And that's actually a part of her character that I relate to, when she's talking about how photography literally like re-sparked her passion for life. It's the best thing that ever happened to her. She does it 24/7. She's always thinking about it. She's always using it to create new memories. But she mentions when she's like applying to college, she's like, yeah, no, I don't know anything about like framing. I've never used a digital camera. I don't have like top 10 favorite photographers. All I know is like the lady who inspired me and like some of my father's old pictures and, like some of my friends from the club. Like, she really isn't the type to get like autistically invested in every little detail of something. But she is one to potentially overthink the emotional ramifications of big decisions in her life. She can kind of get overwhelmed by that, which makes sense because she is somewhat traumatized by the passing of her father. And while this is an anime that very realistically portrays the process of grief and moving on from loss in your life, no matter how much you move on, there are always going to be scars, and that sort of manifests in her personality, which she, of course, acts quote-unquote aggressively to move past. And, it's beautiful, beautiful scenes. There's so many episodes in the show, by the way, that just have great little mini messages. Like, the overall theme of the show is embrace the present so that you can make memories that your heart will always be able to return to in the past, that develop who you'll be so you can look confidently towards the future. It's sort of like inspiring you to go out and enrich both your past, present, and future all at once so that you can become a more complete person. It's obviously, there's a lot of things about like valuing relationships, dealing with loss, making memories, clearing up misunderstandings, approaching people and giving advice, and knowing how to receive advice, and trying to guide people, become the senpai, as I mentioned earlier. But there's so many little messages in like the individual episodes, and they all sort of feed back into that main message of being more aggressive in a way that just feels so well thought out and soulful, and just the payoff is so great once you sort of get to that final movie, which I ended up giving a 10 out of 10, and just seeing the fruits of like everything Fu has done over this really not that long runtime. It's straight up remarkable how many deep relationships she's established, how many distinct memories she's made. I don't even remember what I was saying, but I think I was talking about her personality getting swept up in emotions. Yeah, she has definitely a fairly pronounced sense of, not abandonment issues wouldn't be the right word, but some maybe gentler verbiage for that. She feels sometimes during the end of the series that there are everybody's drifting away from her in a way that sort of reminds her of, her father's passing when she was younger. And that's obviously a really scary thing to think about. This is a series about making memories. It is an Iyashikei series. It's supposed to be comfortable and healing, and it's supposed to bring you joy, and it's supposed to let you in many ways relax and have hope in the world and see the little beauty in everything. And it does, but at the same time, it does so in a very thoughtful and intelligent way that is sustainable and looks towards the future. The comfort of this show comes from the fact that it is equipping its characters with tools that they will be able to use to enrich their future in the present, despite the fact that everything's changing and time is moving on. There are so many people who, and this isn't a bad thing, who want to relive moments of their childhood and nostalgia, which is something that this series champions and sort of frames as beautiful. But at the same time, it's very important to keep making memories and to keep moving forward in life and finding yourself and doing what you want to do. And that's sort of where the series comfort derived from. But it's a series with grief firmly planted in the tone of everything. A lot of the episodes are about Fu, in many ways, slowly coming to terms with her father's passing, as well as coming to understand lessons that he wanted to instill within her when she was younger. There's definitely a heavy emphasis on being grateful and gracious and thankful in this series. The end of my favorite season, Tamayura More Aggressive, really nailed that point home. And it's just, oh man, yeah, there's just a lot to say. Momoneko-sama is adorable. There's like this little fuzzball cat thing that's like the guardian of the town, and he like tries to like go like riz up other cats overseas, and eventually he gets a girlfriend that just spawns in one day, and they have like little baby puffy cat kids, and like he's like supernatural. I think he's like supernatural. He doesn't look anything like other cats, but he just is another cat. And he's just like this weird ass, like almost like guardian angel type spirit who's like looking over the town, I guess, and specifically looking over Fu. He actually follows Fu when she goes overseas sometimes, and tries to riz up the foreign cats and all that. He's like a little bundle of joy, little puffy ball of joy, but he sort of, for a while, represented to me the guardian spirit of Fu's father. Not literally, I don't know that was actually the intention, but it sort of felt like that same guiding, comforting presence that was looking over her. And I do think that was sort of an intentional emotional parallel, even if I don't necessarily think that the cat was literally like the reincarnated spirit of her father. I don't think that at all. But he was a very refreshing comic relief at times. There was one episode where you get to see him developing his courage and scaring off like a wild boar from the town. It's awesome. It's just so cute. I don't remember why I was talking about him, but there's also a great attention to detail when it comes to the background art. You'll see the backgrounds of the characters' rooms and the class club room and the school, and all of these different environments slowly change over time. It's a series that's very keenly focused in on community and the memories that a place can hold, and just returning to it even in its changed state can evoke within you and stir up. Sort of how there is energy, Tamayura, in everywhere. There's energy in every inanimate object that's imbued into it by the memories of the people in the town, basically. And so it's, I think it is, I know it is based off of a real town, and the background art is both very detailed. It slowly develops over the course of the series. And one of my favorite things about it is that it's lush. It's beautiful, but it's almost sort of slightly washed out in a way where it never feels like unbelievably beautiful. It's not like a KyoAni background where it's just like so brilliant and overwhelmingly gorgeous that it's like almost feels like impossible and idyllic. It feels like something that you can so deeply appreciate, and like natural sights that you can so deeply let move you, but ultimately aren't like super unrealistic or anything that you couldn't actually find going outside in a town like this. Once again, it is based off of a real town. And I think that sort of sweet spot of realism and idealism, idyllicness, I don't actually really know the word there, also carries over into the drama and stakes of the series. There are these characters who oftentimes deal with their problems in a very realistic, not overly dramatic, like saccharine anime way. And everything usually turns out all right because of the fact that they have such strong support systems, and they help each other, and they're developing as a group and learning how to look after each other, and all that stuff. There's always like real reasons why the problems resolve themselves. It's never like a miraculous, though there are some funny instances of coincidence. That's a funny thing to say. Throughout the series, it's like just cheery enough, but not too overbearing to where I start to like not be able to buy into it as much, I guess. And it's not that there is a limit for me on how sweet a show can be. I think I can probably watch like just some moe anime that's absurdly cutesy and idyllic, and I can enjoy it. But for the tone, the sort of almost like educational, growing, healing tone of this series, I thought it was just absolutely perfect. It allowed me to buy into the characters while still being like, oh, look at the little, like at the perfect level. I think that's really great. I think that's great how it was like came from the environment to the presentation to the characters. Like on every level, there is a very consistent tone here, I would say. And with the music as well. This is actually one of the first series I've ever watched that I didn't skip a single OP or ED. As I was going through, of course, I watched the OVAs. It's an oddly structured show with a first season that's 4 short OVA episodes, and then a 12-episode season with an OVA, and then another 12-episode season with another OVA. So that comes out to 30 episodes, and then there's 4 movies. The movies are only like an hour long each, but they're essentially just 2 episodes, so it's like just 8 episodes for a final season, but they have a little bit more freedom in their structure, I would say, which is a common theme of the show. The OPs and EDs are not exactly 90 seconds. It doesn't overly care about like perfectly fitting into the confines of a show. It just uses as much time as it needs and no more and no less to tell the story that it wants to tell, which is always a great sign for something in my book. Something that I always looked for. Something that I realized I appreciated. It's a random fact, but while I was watching a Vivi Floret Eyes song, which I ended up not liking that much and dropping, but I was like, clearly there's a lot of care put into this. And that sort of meme where it's like when the anime plays the instrumental of the OP and it's supposed to like get you super emotional and hype. This series has OPs and EDs that there are various instrumental and alternative vocal versions to. That play throughout the series. So it's like they slowly develop and it's like familiar sounds, but there's new flavors added to them, and you can appreciate them and you can appreciate the lyrics through a new context as we sort of develop throughout the series. It's one of those series like Tamako Market, I think. It's like every 4 episodes is a new year. This series is every season besides the first one, which is like just a prequel. I think it's like the summer before school starts essentially. Is a year of high school. So in Tamayura, Hitotose, they are first years. In More Aggressive, they are second years. And in the movie series, they are all third years, which is, there's only 3 years of high school in Japan. So it goes through their entire high school experience, and you hear these sounds develop over the course of it. There's very gentle but powerful instrumentation. I'm not the music guru for a reason. I'm not really great at speaking on all of this stuff, but I was blown away. There's insert songs in like fucking 70% of these episodes. And it just sort of lets you sit with the emotions and be alone with them without overwhelming you with just like so much new information. It's a deep show in the sense that it's well made. Like there's a lot of intentionality to it, especially when I get into like the background art and each character's individual like photographing style and all that stuff. But it's not deep in the traditional sense where there's like a million like elements of like moving pieces going on. I guess there are. It's just not deep in a way that feels overly overwhelming or like complex. Like there's one overarching narrative usually through an episode. There's not really like a B plot or anything. It's like there's a story that needs to be told, and they sort of put all of their effort into giving as soulful and beautiful of a life lesson with that story as they can. One of the things I was talking about when my mind sort of wandered to intentionality was the photographs and how the different characters have different things that they different styles of photography. You don't first start to notice it, but you start to notice it especially when Fu takes on, it's her upperclassman, but she's sort of come out of her shell to an extent to where she has an almost guiding role towards that upperclassman, but it's still a little bit on even footing because, you know, she has a little bit more life experience, and also Fu is exceptionally shy, as is this upperclassman, and I initially didn't know how to feel about her. Oh god, alright, I have to talk about what I was going to talk about. But basically the upperclassman shoots digital, like most people do, and Fu shoots analog on her father's old camera, which is like a token of him that sort of lives on, as I was talking about with those inanimate objects imbued with like the human spirit through the memories that we carry on into our futures. She has that camera, and so she wants to stick with it, and it basically makes it so that if she like fucks up a photo, she doesn't have any way of just like quickly deleting it in the same way that a lot of digital photographers do, and it gives her a somewhat unique perspective that impresses and ends up influencing Kanae's photography style. Because she's always like a bit of a perfectionist. She always wants to make sure the picture's good. She's kind of ashamed of it if it's not. But Fu a little bit more is doing this to understand herself, to understand the world, to understand beauty and what she wants out of this life. So if she gets a bad picture, she still sees there as value being in it. And this ties back into the whole theme of optimism. When she was little, her father would, she was like super perfectionistic. She was super kind of like spoiled and all this stuff, just totally different from how she is sort of after his passing. But God, I'm using so many stutter words. But there are these things that pop up in the pictures sometimes, and I don't know the actual like scientific reasoning behind them. There is, but it's like these little blurry spots on a picture that they call Tamayura eventually, and those spots are probably through most conditional means, like through most conditional lenses or whatever you would say, represent like a fucked up picture. Like they just kind of like cover it up and look blurry and are in the foreground, and they're just kind of odd. But when she tries to take a picture and those like pop up in the picture, she's all like sad, she's crying, she's like, oh, I can't do it right, the picture's ruined, I didn't get it, I wanted to get a good picture. And their father's like, no, these are beautiful little fragments of human emotion that are like only captured in like very heartfelt moments of connection and all those things. And she sort of seeks out capturing Tamayura in her photos from that point on, even though, you know, literally speaking, that's not what they are. It's just like some random weird like dust or flare or something. I don't know the first thing about photography. But it sort of ties into that optimistic perspective that has to go hand in hand with getting out of your comfort zone. You have to have the belief and the support system that you can go out and do these things. And sometimes that has to come from within yourself. But this is a very beautiful story where thankfully a lot of these characters have great influences on them, reinforcing them every step of the way. Oh God, I think of Maun when I talk about like parenting in this series. I think of the episode of Hitotose where Maun, who is extremely shy and like at times nonverbal, her parents run an inn and they want her to one day take over the inn, which is complicated as it kind of happens later. But like it's like a family business is the point. They don't explicitly want her to necessarily. But she wants to go to school on the mainland so she can meet more people, even though she's really shy, which is a great, very aggressive decision. And she does it. And while she's on the mainland, she meets all these, or at least more deeply connects with all of these girls and forms these relationships and develops out of her shyness a little bit and learns how to communicate herself, learns how she wants to express herself. And all these things, she starts taking up music and storytelling and hell, even acting. She's the type who gets caught up in her thoughts. Like all these characters get caught up in their thoughts except Norie, who's the pigtail or the twin tails girl, in their own ways. Like all of them get caught up in their thoughts, but none of them get caught up in their thoughts in the same way. And Maun is just like, she's not always keen on like pulling the trigger and like being able to go out and do the stuff. She has a little bit more of a struggle with that, but she actually loves just getting entrenched in the details. She loves just letting her mind wander and imagine these like crazy scenarios. And it leads to a lot of her like moe comedy in Hitotose, though it sort of tapers off towards the end and becomes just a more mundane element of her personality. She has a really nice like subtle characterization throughout the series as she sort of slowly transitions out of her tics without ever totally abandoning them and gets more comfortable with other members of the group. Besides Norie. But her story that really made me appreciate it is she wanted to express how thankful she was to her parents for letting her go out and fend for herself in the mainland and try to meet new people and make new friends. So she goes back there and decides that she wants to tell a story that is an extension of something that she wrote when she was much younger, so that she can show her emotional maturity and prove to her parents that their parenting has allowed her to grow into a better person. It's an extremely touching moment. She wants to show them firsthand that what they've been doing and their care for her has actually manifested, that she's not only appreciated it, but used it to become a better, more complete person in the world who can express herself. I'm literally like tearing up right now because she cares so much about them and she appreciates so much everything that they've done for her. And it's just such an unbelievably beautiful moment. So I can stop myself from crying. I'll talk about one of the only negatives I had on the series. In the third movie, the first half of the third movie focuses on Maun, and there's like this scene where she's talking about all of the different things she wants to potentially consider, and acting, storytelling, singing, all of these things. And their dad's at the career meeting like, oh, she's so multi-talented. You see, like, we don't even know what to do with her. And she's like, you know what? I want to take over the family inn. I think that the family inn has been there for me my whole life in a way that I want to be there for other people. And the dad stands up and the lights dramatically backlight him from the window, and he's like, I will absolutely not accept this. And it totally harshly contrasts his entire characterization to that point in the series as like the crybaby, overly sentimental guy who just like loves and puts full trust in his daughter and all that. And I understand where it's coming from. Sometimes you can act outside of yourself if you truly just want the best for somebody so badly, and it's not like he is doing anything other than what he thinks is in her best interest. But the way it's framed was so anime and melodramatic. And don't get me wrong, I like anime. There's a lot of anime tropes that I love. I talked about it in my Casher and Sins video, how it's like, yeah, I love the edginess. I love the spiky character designs, the eyes covered up and all that. There are times where I really love like tropey anime stuff. I just wasn't expecting to see it randomly pop up in this series, and it was a little bit in the second movie as well, but not quite as bad. And he just has like this bold declaration where he's like, you will never, this is final. And she's like, no, you're kidding, right? There's no way. And he's like, yes, I'm putting my foot down. You will never work at the end. And then she's, talks to her friends about it, and they're sort of bringing up like, hey, what's the issue here? Why are you so down? And she tells them, and then they all go to the island and sort of sort it out. It turns out that the father just didn't want her to feel shackled down by her parents and the family business and all of that. He wanted her to go out and be her own person. But, in the end of the day, the message is that, she's gotten to the point where she can make her own decisions. And there's a lot of times everybody wants to be like super ambitious and become a great artist. But, it can be just as beautiful to just guide people and to provide comfort and stability for others and watch them grow. It's not this life is about being aggressive. But in the same sense, it's about just appreciating the beauty of all the little things, And there's nothing wrong with wanting to take over the family business. If they think about all of the happiness that their daughter has brought them, she can bring that to other people. And I really like Mountain because she has such a complex understanding of the people who have invested in her. She's a very grateful character. And it's great to see her come out of her shell over the course of the series because she just kind of whistles at the beginning. To transition this into discussion about one of the main characters, Norie. That is one of her first major wholesome social interaction where she feels somebody actually understands her because she's like autistic and she has these weird ass tics where she just like whistles instead of communicating. And she meets this girl who's like super, a lot more like popular, kind of Genki. And it's talking about like some guy who didn't like the dessert she baked for him. And they sort of go off and walk together and discuss their lives and the issues in their lives. And it's mostly Norie going on about her problems because, she likes to solve them right in the moment. I'll get to her character a little more in a little bit. But Mountain, who's not really so effectively able to communicate, ironically, her struggles with communicating with others, she doesn't really have the words for that yet. They're sitting and they're walking and they're developing this friendship, and she starts whistling and Norie just sort of understands her. Not so literally, but through the emotions that she's able to convey. And it's one of the first times that Mountain genuinely feels understood in the series. And Norie's like, listen, you don't have to talk. I can understand. I can relate to you on a human level. And it's like a sort of a great subtle message of like, you just have to spend time with people, no matter where your aptitudes lie. If you spend enough time with people, you will find understanding. You will find the feelings inside of yourself. You will find relatability. You will find friends. All these beautiful things, which is a very important thing for a character. But Norie is interesting because, like all these characters, they're raised in an amazing community, and they're all raised with values of wanting to help and support each other and be altruistic. But these various methods of altruism vary from character to character. Fu wants to spread joy and love through the warmth of her photography. Norie is a pastry maker, and she likes the sense of communion and instant, like, she injects. I wrote a review of the second movie where I'm like, making pastries is the easiest way for Norie to inject her like saccharine positive energy directly into everybody around her. She's like, she speaks her mind. She likes to solve problems right away. And that ends up being her one issue, is that she's almost too headstrong for her own good at times. Where if she makes a rash decision, she's going to stick by it and then move forward, because she's not the type to let doubt creep into her head, which is something that I keep belaboring, but something that is a trait you can have as long as you have a strong support system, and emphasizes the importance of having that so that people can be more headstrong, so that they can be more confident. But she ends up learning how to grow past it once her friends start to communicate to her. Her sort of thing is she wavers in her desire to keep baking, because she realizes that it might not be as realistic of a goal as she had once thought, to become like the best baker in the world and all this stuff. Like, she doesn't even know like her states and capitals. Okay, well, she's not American, so obviously she doesn't, but she doesn't know the Japanese equivalent of her states and capitals, is what I would say. And she doesn't really have like a grand plan. Her brother was going through a time where he was trying to figure out what to do in his life during his early years of college, and he sort of projected that onto her and lashed out at her just a little bit. And she was like, "You know what? Fine, you're right. I shouldn't bake. This doesn't mean that much to me. What matters to me is just my friends and the connections that baking allowed me to make anyway." But then she realizes, no, baking is a part of her. Baking is a deep part of how she communicates herself to her friends. It's a deep part of how she learned to understand other people through this communion. And it's just so sweet. It's so adorable. That's another example of something that's like slightly melodramatic for my taste, but at the end of the day, it resolved in such an interesting way that developed Norie so much as a character emotionally for me, that I ended up really appreciating that. She's the wild one of the group. This is another little detail I really liked in the series, but she has like a super pronounced crush on Fu's younger brother, very problematic, all that stuff. I don't care. And there's one scene where there's like this little girl who also has a crush, who's in his grade, on Fu's younger brother. And she's inspired by Fu and sort of takes up her own photography style. It's so cute. But basically, she's always like pining after Ko, and Norie is too. But with Norie, it's in more of a comedic relief sense. And there's a beautiful scene where it was sort of the introduction to explaining why Norie appreciates baking. It's a labor of love that you do for someone, which is something I can relate to, because I made treats when I was little. I loved just like knowing that like I could give this like sweetness and these good tastes directly to the people in my family who I loved and I cared for. I'm kind of a sap. I like the show because I'm just a sap. Honestly, that's something that I'm definitely learning as my favorites list fills up with more and more sap shit like this, and March comes in like a lion. But in the first episode where they were sort of laying that out, Komachi, which is a little girl who also has a crush on Fu's younger brother, has a rivalry, and she's like, okay, we'll both bake something for Ko, then we'll see which one he likes more. And there's a scene in there where she's like, I know what you're doing, Norie. You're just baking so you can get closer to Ko. And like Norie will joke about that. She's like, oh, I'm going to go to the Tamayura cafe so I can learn how to bake from Fu's grandma, and I can see Ko, and I'm so excited to see Ko. Oh my gosh, his brilliance is shining so radiantly, like all this stuff. And she's always super overly enthusiastic. I thought it was actually pretty funny. I like the delivery, especially from her seiyuu. Her voice actress fucking knocked it out of the park. I thought that was dope. But she mentions to Komachi, she's like, no, what are you talking about? Do you actually seriously think that's the reason? Like, she kind of says that briefly. And she plays into it for the rest of the series as well, but it's sort of like a banter thing. She's hyping up Ko. She's like teasing Komachi, who is a little bit of a little sister figure, though. Norie is not exactly in every way the most emotionally mature person, especially in terms of relationships, as it's sort of subtly hinted at over the course of this series. Though this is one of the ones where there's no romance or anything like that. There's like a subtle low-key implied romance between Fu's friend from the mainland and then another friend she makes, but I think I might have just been reading into that. But that was so cute. When it comes to the background art, the posing of these characters is so idiosyncratic and beautiful. Like the ones where like some of them are more like touchy and they'll like hug each other, and the framing and like the way everything's set up, you can tell is very intentional. It's directed by Junichi Sato, who did Aria the Animation, Princess Tutu, everything. He's a great director. And he had a sort of understated style here in the sense that there's not like these crazy... I know sakuga is not a directorial term, but there aren't these like crazy, far out there, in your face, impressive, beautiful shots that the series goes for. It's able to communicate beauty very subtly and realistically, in my opinion. But it's very consistently intentional and shot like a photographer would shoot something. There's a lot of emphasis placed on the blocking of the characters and the source of the lighting, and all of that's just like... This anime has a great sense of mise-en-scène, if I can get as pretentious as humanly possible for a second. I found that so fucking dope. It's a very intentional work, and, you know, one of my... I'll just sort of sprinkle... I'm just going to say all my complaints right now, actually, because I don't have that many. In Tamayura More Aggressive, I found that there were a few less experimental, like more just like standard, all the characters standing in a line with like a fairly blank smile behind Fu as like she does her stuff, just sort of being supporting cast, which is overall emblematic of the tone of Tamayura More Aggressive, which is more focused on Fu herself than the previous season, which is a little bit more spread out throughout the main cast. But I thought the directing wasn't quite as strong and intentional at points in Tamayura More Aggressive, even though it was ultimately my favorite season. There were tinges of melodrama that I didn't like as much in the graduation movies, although the, you know, visual quality increase was extremely welcome and beautiful to see, because it's beautiful when a show's art style evolves over the course of it. I noticed this in Higurashi because it's just an even more subtle, nice way of seeing the growth of these characters and registering in them in your brain as like, oh, they're new people now. It's the slight art style change was such a fucking great way to do that. But yeah, that at first I thought the seiyus, all of them except like Norie and a few others, were like a little bit, their register is all like super high and like almost like whistling. They're like, hey, I'll talk like this from the back of their throat, they do. And I was like, okay, this is actually kind of like nails on a chalkboard to listen to. I totally grew past that within like 10 minutes or something. Because when I was first watching, I'm like, is this going to be that soothing? Because I don't, these voices are kind of annoying to me. I'm someone who cares like a great deal about voices and voice acting. And yeah, it wasn't a problem at all. Though it's something that I would still know. Like it did come up like every once in a while. There are times during Hitotose and More Aggressive where you might start to feel, okay, how many more times is this girl just going to go to a fucking festival and talk about her dad? Yeah, that's not really how it feels. It's like an overly blunt and somewhat insensitive way to say it. But there is like a festival. Every single episode is just some culture festival where her dad leaves her something behind to find, and she's like, oh, he's still with me, giving me memories and all that. But, you know, you see that is a very realistic... Every flaw in this series has like another side to the coin, you know? There's nothing that I can just be like, oh, this was stupid. Like, you know, when Moun's father acts melodramatically, it's like, yeah, but I can see where they're coming from here. When... You know, they go to so many festivals and sort of retread oftentimes extremely similar lessons over and over again. I'm like, yeah, but that is a pretty realistic depiction of the process of grief and growing from loss, you know. It's always very soulful and it's perfect, you know. It's Tamayura. It's my favorite anime ever for this week. But, Jesus Christ, I'm going on for 42 minutes. Yeah, yikes. What else should I talk about? More of the characters, of course. My favorite one besides Fu. Fu is best character ever. Fu is best girl. One of my favorite characters. She's on my my favorites list on Mal now. Very wholesome. But Cow was my second favorite. I loved Cow. Cow is sort of the one who... Ignore that. The one who blends into the background sometimes. She decides to organize something called a quote-unquote we exhibition, where they all display their talents, and she's the one with like the most quirky, not culturally appreciated talent. She makes like potpourri, which is like smells, and so she like develops smells and stuff, and it's funny when they all talk about like splitting paths during the graduation. They're like, I'm gonna do this, She's like, I can't really be a professional smell maker, can I? That's not really a thing. It's kind of just like a funny little moment of comedy, but she is an extremely thoughtful character who thrives on the details and is more intentional than both Fu and Moun. Fu gets overwhelmed with emotions, and it's almost like a character flaw linked to her subtle abandonment issues. Mound gets swept up in the emotions and just like loves every second of it and likes carrying herself away in the moment. And then Cal likes to plan everything out. Cal likes to finally coordinate an experience to her taste that she can provide like a great, unforgettable experience for her friends, for other people she cares about. She eventually resolves that she wants to become a wedding planner or wedding organizer so that she can help people have, the happiest day of their lives and truly make it special. It's a beautiful thing that fits perfectly with her character. But she has all of them do like this exhibition where they all show off their artistic talents, and a bunch of people from the town come in and they're like, oh my gosh, our kids are so bright. It's this beautiful, wholesome moment of community. The fucking weird puffball cat comes in and just like leers at all the stuff and is like, yes, and then leaves. It's great. It's dope. But the thing I love about Cal is the fact that she's low-key, she was at some point described as like a manager of the group. She's kind of the mom. They're all kind of the mom in the sense that they're all like caring and have compassion and have like strong values and all that stuff. But she is more than anybody the mom of the group who's trying to coordinate everything for everybody else. She's in many ways the most emotionally intelligent character. She's the one who's able to reach out to Fu the most. She's the one who is able to sort of understand situations and pick up on when other characters aren't feeling so hot. And there's a lot of great subtle characterization on that front, where I would say Norie is the other side of the coin, where Norie is the one who acts immediately. If she senses something's off, she's going to confront immediately. She's going to try to feel out the situation. She's going to try to help her friends. She is going to make her thoughts and opinions known. And those two personality types come into play and help support the group in different ways at different times throughout the series, which is why the second movie was so interesting to me, and I wrote a little review on it, because it was sort of a subtle way of contrasting the brand of altruism that Cal has from the brand of altruism that Norie has, and the sort of immediate versus very thought out sense, and how that reflects in their subtly different personality types, much like the photography style of most of these characters reflect their personality types. Like, for example, Fu is very straightforward in her approach. She's oftentimes criticized for it, but loves to emphasize the human subjects and the warmth of every image. There's Kanae, who's like a big picture, more of a perfectionist, and you see it when they go out to take pictures of the cherry blossom tree. Shoutouts to Moomy from the Weeb crew, who reminded me of this, but you can see them like taking pictures of like the whole tree, and then Fu like going to an individual branch with the sun peeking through or something. It is like very, very, very cool. Another emphasis on the background art the characters have. Fu has her own pictures hanging up in her apartment complex by the end of it, or in her apartment rather. Her mentor character also has her pictures hanging up, and you can see her style, which sort of emphasizes the way an environment forms around something. Like, there's a lot of like super strong backlight that sort of makes the subject of the picture a silhouette. And to me, that always communicated, and there was actually an emotional scene shot in this way, a few of them throughout the series, that shows like the environment around the subject giving form and giving shape to it, which is obviously extremely thematically relevant in this series. But yeah, it's super intentional. The music's amazing, the directing's amazing, the character writing's amazing, the voice acting's amazing. Yeah, everything's amazing. It's Tamayura. The last of the main group, which is like sort of a fringe member of the main group that I forgot to mention when I was talking about all the relationships Fu had built up, is her upperclassman Kanae. And she has a very interesting arc where she is a very shy girl, and she wants to come into her own, and she wants to take the initiative and make new friends and learn about the girl who she photographed, which is Fu. And so she ends up joining her club. But at the end of the day, she joins as a senior, so she's only going to get to know these people for less than a year. And there's a sort of like push and pull in her head of like, how much emotional stake am I willing to put into these people and these memories, knowing they're going to go away so fast? Is it worth it for me to try to develop this relationship? And generally the answer is yes. This is something she more so starts feeling towards the latter half of that relationship, as so often it is, like once you start nearing towards the end, you start overthinking everything and prematurely grieving it, something that this series sort of cautions against, prematurely grieving before something has happened. It's like, how about we appreciate the moment that we're still in, and so that we can have it forever, basically. But Kanae is having all of these concerns basically, and she learns to, make the memories, be thankful for today, and use what she learns here to move on and prove to herself that she can meet people, she can make memories. These things have taught her to be a better person, and those things are never going to leave her behind, and she'll always be able to visit, even if it's just in her memories. And visiting in your memories is, what happens when you start to talk about Fu's father. The camera that's breaking. Fu's camera is breaking, and it's her one tied to her father, and she slowly comes to terms with it. And oh my God, and the final movie where she's able to talk with her childhood friend about the passing of her father, and it's the most emotionally loaded scene in the entire series, but they're able to talk about it without crying. And it shows her progression as she looks confidently towards the future. There's so much stuff to talk about. There's her relationship with getting overly caught up in photography and capturing the moments as opposed to always being present. She isn't always in the pictures. This was, I believe, towards the end of Tamayura More Aggressive. There was a nice lesson that she had learned from her mother at the place where her father had proposed to her mother when her camera was broken for the first time, about just being able to appreciate the memory and not necessarily having to view everything through this specific lens. Because she had some more emotional experiences, and it's without the camera, and they were almost more special because they will only exist within her. And she had to sort of come to understand that towards the end of More Aggressive, which led to the ultimate final message of thank you. I appreciate everything in my past. I'm so glad I was able to make the memories I made because those are me now. There's no separation from the past and the present. The present is me. The present the past is me. The present is me. It's all just factors that make up me. And it will live on forever and influence the future, basically. Which, again, all this series themes weave into each other, because then you start once again talking about community and raising children and mentoring people and, sort of having your influence transcend through generation to generation. But I want to clear up about Kanae. I didn't think I'd like her because I didn't like her design as much as some of the other girls. Oh my God, I have to mention the outfit design is amazing. Fu's outfits are adorable. Cow's outfits are adorable. Every character has their own sense of style. They have wardrobes. They have stuff that they wear sometimes, and sometimes they even have pieces that only show up, but that show up every once in a while, but in different outfits, which is something I talked about in my Red Garden review. That's extremely rare in anime and a great way to subtly characterize your leads, your characters. I just don't want to say characterize and then characters. There's so much. There's just so much to appreciate, man. This is such a gem. This is such a find. It's heinously underrated. I get that a lot of people are going to find it boring, but it's I can't believe this. I can't believe the quality radiating off of this show. It's mind-blowing. It's so beautiful and soulful and human. But to get back to the, I told you that I gave you the glaze warning. I told you, I think I did. I think I gave you guys a glaze warning. I told you, listen, I'm just going to drop analysis and start praising this show more broadly because at some point you just gotta the goat's the goat. You gotta bow your head, But getting back to her dynamic with her father, which is in some ways the core of the show, though there is no real core of the show. She has a million relationships that are all important to her in unique ways. So let's just get that out of the way. But her relationship with her father is a complex one because obviously she's coming to terms with his loss and he's showing her all of these things from beyond the grave. There is a strong tinge of melancholy to the tone, which is then sort of supplanted and combined with the sense of anxiety and dread regarding the inevitable graduation and split up between the girls. And it's something you can feel as you're sort of inching towards the end of the series. It's at first, the main source of negative emotional complexity contributing to the tone was the grief of Fu's father. But as she comes to terms with it, it sort of gets replaced with the anxiety for the future, the opposite thing. It's the hooks from the future tying into the present instead of the hooks from the past, although they are still very much there. And it's through her ability to come to terms with the loss of her father that she's able to come to terms with the loss of her friends. So it's she uses the lessons from her past, applies them to the future in a way that's a very amazing full circle moment during the final scene of her graduation. The actual final scene is the cream puff cat with all of his little cream puff babies, and it's fucking adorable. But the second to last scene, he teaches her about the value of optimism. He teaches her about value of moving on, of community, of having your own friends, of having your own little place to go, of being more aggressive is the main thing, seeking out new experiences, of helping other people get out of their shell. He has like all of these like amazing connections and relationships that get passed down to her. It's just all of these like really beautiful things. Not rushing growing up. There's so the amount of life lessons in this show is just absolutely baffling. But her father is the source of many of them, and it's beautiful to see that she is still able to have this relationship with him, even though he has passed. And God, I think this video sucks so bad. I always end up saying this when there's a show that I really want to speak well about, because it's just I keep saying, and it all goes back to that main theme. It's like of dealing with the past in a productive and soulful manner. It all comes back into those feelings of nostalgia that I think these Nishijoke, though this isn't really Nishi. Yeah, no, I guess it is. That these anime sort of always play around with this theory of like longing for the past and pleasant memories and maybe like thoughts about things that you wish you had had in your life, experiences that you are a bit melancholic about never having had, but you're still so drawn to them. And this is this weird, complex, nostalgic haze. It's communicated really well in Ozymandias. Ozymandias is so good, but not for the reasons I thought. I thought it was just going to be the funniest shit ever because I saw all the meme pages. It's really because of the amazing nostalgic tone and visual presentation in conjunction with like the top tier level adorable moe blobness of it, as opposed to it just being that funny. It's decently funny, but not crazy. I might get scorched alive for that one, but I just wanted to mention that real quick because holy shit, this series made me think about Ozymandias a lot. Yeah, she learns all these things from her father. She learns how to interact with the past in a way that enriches her present and future. That is what this is about. This is about photography as a way to capture a moment in time that will exist forever in who you are until the day you die. It's like this is about the past and the future and the present all existing at the same time, and you just sort of growing into a more complex version of yourself as you travel through them. They don't exist at the same time. But they're also connected. They're also connected. This is a connection between the past, the present, and the future. And it's about making memories. It's about photography. Kind of made me want to try photography. But I would definitely be like Fu, where I wouldn't be that interested in the technical aspect, but just like the emotional, warm, communal part of it more so. But I also wanted to mention something with Kao when it comes to her idea of the we exhibition, where she's like, I care so deeply about all my friends. I want them to make memories, and I want them to be able to express themselves and give them an outlet. So how about I sort of organize this thing? And that's where her chops as a manager start to shine. That reminded me a lot of like the ideal version of what I want my YouTube channel to be. Like, it's not like totally like that, to be honest, but I've always imagined it when I have so many live action segments that I sort of essentially have a guest director on, or, I commissioned a bunch of art from Jozu and I want to start working in like an animation in one of my next videos from him as well. You'll see it coming up. Maybe it'll be the Tamayura video. Who knows? I want it to be like this, my channel. One of the things I want it to be is just a reason for me to go out and socialize. A reason, hey, I'm going to come over, I'm going to film something. Hey, I'm going to come over, we're going to like work on something for a video. It'd be a fun time. A reason for me to connect with my friends, and a way for them to sort of share their talents with the world, because I'm friends with so many cool, unique, talented people who don't always necessarily put themselves out there, who I want to show to the world. And I think that's just so beautiful. I think I described Kao as a people artist. She's great at coordinating people, all these moving parts, and putting them in a situation where she knows that there's going to be fireworks. There's going to be an amazing, beautiful moment. She expresses herself, like her art is through her appreciation and understanding of other people. She's not a traditional artist, except in the sense that she makes smells like the other girls are. She's somebody who's an organizer, and it gave me a lot more respect for that profession and that sort of personality type, and I thought that was very beautiful. And she was overall my second favorite character. There's a lot of gags I could get into. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, and then there's the younger characters. So there's Fu's relationship. I just have to reiterate this. By the end of the movie, it shows you, or by the end of the series, the last movie shows you, it's like, oh yeah, Fu has developed strong and unique relationships with her younger brother, her younger brother's classmate, who she's a mentor to, her lower classmen who are just a few years older in high school, who she is a photography mentor to, her upperclassmen who she helped come out of her shell with Kanae, her 3 friends, of course, the parents and siblings of some of her friends, such as the older sister of Kao, who has a lot of the same personality traits as Kao and is very motherly and sort of organizes situations where these characters can bond together, even though it kind of makes her the bad guy in some way. She's a great little commentary about coming out of your comfort zone and sometimes having to be the bad guy who lugs everybody's ass out of bed to go and like have an awesome experience that they're going to have to work for just a little bit. And also a reference to the Yukari mobile and Yukari from Azumanga another Azumanga epic reference. Azumanga Consuelo Family Guy. Geez, I'm just saying words. It's getting late. She has that. Ko, her lower classmen, her upperclassmen, her core friend group, Ko's friend, her own mother, her posthumous father, Kao's older sister, her mentor, her mentor's friends, her father's old friends with the guy who fixes her camera up, with the guy who she meets at the Path of Longing festival while she's a second year, with the her father's lower classman that she was also a friend with Momoneko-sama, and she finally takes good pictures of him and more aggressive. She's always like chasing that and never able to quite capture it right. She grows from, it's interesting, she's so like ungainly at the beginning. Like she's so like wobbly and falling over and clumsy and like, you know, it's all very cool and very moe, but you do subtly see her sort of shake that off and become a more majestic person. She becomes a lot more graceful and competent in that way. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful... I didn't even finish all the relationships she has in. She has the people back home and then the people back home who made new friends after she had left. I wanted to count it, but there's like 14 distinct relationships that she has forged all throughout these 35 episodes. And it's like, wow, they really are all deep. And there's so many little like one-off characters as well that she learns valuable lessons from. And it's just a beautiful story about life, about time, about moments, and about relationships. It's very broad. It's not overwhelming. It's not overly saccharine or overly anime, but at the same time, you know, it is moe, it is cute, it is wholesome, it is healing. And the main thing that I want to praise about this show is I think it makes you a better person to watch this thoughtfully. It will make you want to grow. It'll make you want to go out and sort of take those risks so that you can make memories and become a better person in the future. It'll make you want to appreciate the little things in life. It'll make you want to reach out to your friends. It'll make you want to hang out with your friends. It'll make you want to make new memories and pick up new hobbies. It's so fucking inspirational because it shows extremely relatable human complex characters and then shows you how their life is practically bettered by taking on these life lessons. It shows you every step of the way. How does being optimistic help this person pursue new experiences, learn more about themselves, and then use that information they learn about themselves to give advice to other characters, which strengthens their relationship with and gives her a new anchor that ties her to the town, that gives her more things to look forward to as she comes back to the town, which, you know, it's just... And then it lets her be more optimistic when she's saying goodbye because she knows there's going to be more people to return to. And it's just like, it's just beautiful. It's just, you just watch this girl grow her entire life so fast, but so gradually. It's fucking amazing. It's something I talked about in March Comes in Like a Lion season 2 because I was so depressed. And I really liked the way that like Evangelion had mimicked how I felt about my depression. But then March Comes in Like a Lion did so much better of a job of showing me like why I should want to fight my way out of it, you know, like the beauty that this world has. And this series just knocks that element out of the park. It shows you everything that the world has to offer, all these wholesome experiences that you can gain from life, all these amazing life lessons, all of these great hobbies, all these great types of people that surely exist. And oh man, it's just great. I would say it's definitely one of my my new favorite anime ever. but I've only watched like 10 anime, so I got to definitely got to watch more stuff in this genre. Stop being such a plebe. I'm out of breath ranting about this. Once again, I'm sure there's going to be a million things that I didn't say here that I definitely wanted to say that I think about later. Maybe I'll add like a little pinned comment with some of them, but the point is my appreciation for this series runs very deep. I'm very thankful for it, and I'm glad I watched it.